What's up guys, Xbox Texture back today with another video. Today we're going to be talking about Halo Edge of Dawn by Kelly Gay, the next book in the Halo series. So this is going to be a spoiler review, so if you have not read the book and you do not want to be spoiled by it, please definitely go click on my other video. That one is a spoiler-free one. I don't pretty much say any major plot points. I just talk about my overall thoughts and feelings on the book. But if you are either have read it and or you just really don't care to read it and want to hear more about some of the major plot points and what they may mean for Halo 7, this is definitely the video for you, so let's just jump right into it. So not only will this be a major spoiler for the book, Halo Edge of Dawn, but also, of course, Halo Infinite, and also Kelly Gay's previous book before this one, Halo Rubicon Protocol. So those are other things you might want to take into account of not wanting to be spoiled about. But once again, we're going to just be talking most specifically about this book and some of the characters that follow from those two other sources. So, Edge of Dawn takes place immediately after the events of Halo Infinite. Likewise, it also continues one of the major characters from Rubicon Protocol. For the most part, I would definitely recommend playing Infinite, because this story definitely still follows Halo Infinite's story, obviously with the Chief, Joyeuse, the new name for the weapon, who was originally called Weapon and or sometimes just Cortana 2. And of course, the pilot, Fernando Esparza. Rubicon Protocol is important to understand one of the characters in this book and kind of his background, but I wouldn't say like if you go into this without playing Infinite, you may still actually be able to follow, because the character's name is Lucas Browning, and Lucas Browning actually left datapad terminals in Halo Infinite's campaign that you can find. You get a gist of his story throughout those little pads in Infinite, and I'll leave a little cool video right here.
Medic, Lucas Browning. If you find this, you need to understand. They forced me to help them with it. Whatever it is. They brought it up from whatever's below. When it opened, God, it was something different. I've never seen anything like it. You need to believe me. It's not my fault.
To show you exactly what I mean by you're able to find stuff by Lucas Browning, I did one that was not going to spoil much of anything, but it is really important that you read Rubicon Protocol, because you get more fleshed out stories of not just Lucas Browning, but the Banished, as well as, you know, the other Spartans that were on this ring at the time that the Infinity was attacked. Likewise, my bias is going to be showing right here. I absolutely love Rubicon Protocol. I think it's literally one of my favorite Halo books, but we'll get more into that book when we get down that road, not for a while now though. Okay, so unlike my normal videos for these book reviews, I'm not going to be telling you, step by step of what the story entails. I'm going to be actually just talking about some of the major characters, the major plot points, and what I loved and hated about the book, and also kind of what this book sets up for the next Halo game. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because if I try and sit here and tell you, the entire story, then my loves and hates, then my favorite characters, and then what's next for Halo, this could be at least a 2-hour-long video. I don't want to try and do that for this one specifically, because then when we get to this book and our journey, I'll just be like, go watch this video. I don't feel like making another one, but I feel like making another one, and it's good to reread these every once in a while. So this is definitely going to be more about like, hey, this is the book, here's what I loved and hated, so let's jump into it. So there are 4 major characters in this book, and I think it's going to be a little surprising when I say who they are. Obviously, Master Chief, Joyeuse, aka the Weapon, Fernando Esparza, and Lucas Browning. Now I know some of you are probably like, whoa James, you didn't say Jaga or Domni. Like, he's literally on the cover of the book. How could you say he's not a major character? And I will get into that in just a moment, but here's what I will say about Jaga. I felt like he wasn't as prevalent in the book as the cover and even the synopsis on the back of the book leads you to believe. I kind of found it almost a little disappointing how much he wasn't in the book. He does some crazy things in it when he shows up, but not to the point where I was like, oh my god, this is great. It's more of just kind of how he was in Infinite, where he would show up every now and then, do something, then leave. If anything, he's kind of like Master Chief in Halo 5, where you play 3 missions with him and then you spend the rest of the game as Jameson Locke. So take that with how you will. But again, like I said, I'll get more into what Jaga does throughout the book and get into my loves and hates about that situation. But for now, let's start off with the Master Chief. So one thing to really understand with the Chief, this is a book that obviously follows Chief from the events of Halo 5 to Infinite and up until now. And one thing we don't really realize is Chief has not had time to grieve Cortana ever since her death in Halo 4, her betrayal in Halo 5, her death again in Halo Infinite. It's just one after another with Cortana to the point that Chief has not been able to, grieve that. And likewise, he's also beating himself up mentally. We get a lot of mental dialogue for the Master Chief in this book, where he's essentially mad at himself for going missing those 6 months after being defeated by Atriox, basically allowing the Banished to capture humans, destroy the UNSC, and then obviously he comes back in Infinite, and he's like mad at himself, but he's like, all right, we got a mission to do, let's take back the ring. But then obviously at the end of Halo Infinite, when he goes into the Silent Auditorium to face the Harbinger, we find out after that battle that he and Joyeuse had gone missing for 3 days. And when he's finally picked up by the pilot at the end of the game and at the beginning of this book, he finds out that since he's been gone, the Banish has essentially removed back into some of those forward operating bases, aka FOBs, that we as the character took control of throughout the game. He's hearing that a lot of humans are getting even worse torture methods because the Banish is getting revenge for the death of Escharum. So it's a lot of Chief kind of just battling himself, both trying to deal with the grief of Cortana and also with his own failures as a Spartan. And that culminates when he finally finds Lucas Browning, our young medic who was taken by the Banished in Halo Rubicon Protocol, tortured by them as well as, tortured by the Harbinger as well. He kind of makes it his personal mission to save this one guy. Not that no one else is important, but he makes it a personal mission. Like, I cannot fail. I'm going to get this medic out of here. He's going to be safe. We're going to make it through this. Overall, I think Kelly Gay, this is her first time having Master Chief as her main character. This is her first time writing for the Chief. I think she did phenomenal. I think she did really good. There's some lines here and there that Chief says that I'm like, I don't know if he would say that, but I'll let it slide. They're nothing groundbreaking or story breaking. They're very minute, but it's just one of those things where you're like, I don't know if the Chief would say that, but nothing that would overall ruin the story. There are times that even as someone who enjoys 343's telling of Chief being half human and half robot, I forget how much of a human he still is, because there's parts in this book where Chief takes off his helmet and no one seems surprised. Like, he takes off the helmet and the pilot's like, okay, yeah, so anyways, this is what's happening. And I'm like, whoa, he just took his helmet off. What are you doing? Or the Master Chief sleeps, or he eats and drinks water. And it's like such small things that I'm like, oh, right, you still need those things. You're not just able to run and gun 24/7 like you do in the video game. So overall, I think she did really well with Chief's character. I bet you it was terrifying to write for him, because if you mess up with the Master Chief, you're kind of doomed in the Halo community. Now, if there's one character I think Kelly Gay really nailed, with just almost perfect from the game to the book, because obviously we know that sometimes every author has their own spin on characters, and that translation from game to book kind of shifts those characters, traits and aspects and the way they talk. But if there's one character who did not feel that way, it was Joyeuse. I think that Kelly Gay killed it with Joyeuse. She is perfect. She's her same fun, joyful, sarcastic character that we love in the game. And what I really enjoy about this book is it really focuses on Joyeuse's, her becoming her own AI. Now remember, she is a copy of Cortana. Her name Joyeuse, even though to her it just means joy, being happy, energetic. In reality, for those who are deep epic lovers, Joyeuse is essentially the name of a sword, and that sword's metal composition is the same metal that was used to make other weapons such as Durandal and Cortana.
He needs her.
And we find out through the book, there's times where Joyeuse is able to not essentially hear Cortana, but we find out that when Cortana sacrificed herself and saved, Joyous, destroyed the ring, she essentially left some code in Joyous, kind of like her own conscious talking to Joyous. It's not major where every now and then she hears Cortana. It's more of just like she finds data streams that she can read and listen to. And in one of these data streams, Cortana is like essentially telling the story of Joyous and being the sword and shield of the Master Chief. Cortana saved Joyous so that way she could be that new sword for the Master Chief. And like it's essentially showing how Joy, aka Joyous, came to that conclusion of that name, Joyous. She says it just means joy and happiness, and it's perfect for her, but it's also like a deep, like subconscious level of Cortana being like, yo, I'm not saying you should pick this name, but it's perfect for who you are and who you could be. One thing that I really love is in the game, obviously, there's only really two humans that we see, the Chief and the pilot. And we obviously get to see Fernando Esparza's reaction to Joyous when she first shows up, and he obviously says Cortana and panics, but then it's quickly like, okay, never mind, we're good, it's not Cortana, let's move on. That aspect is played so much more in this book that you forget that she is a copy of Cortana. Well, you don't really forget, but you forget what that means for others who are not the Chief. When he comes across Spartan Thomas Horvath, another major character from Rubicon Protocol, he shows Joyous. And Horvath is not pleased. Actually, he gets on the defensive. He pretty much says, like, I'm not trusting that thing, you can't make me. But ultimately, he does trust the Chief to the point where he'll reluctantly allow her to talk and transfer data from the Chief to himself. But in that moment when Horvath gets on this defensive and he's like spitting basically venom at Joyous, it's a whole new look for her, because that's, again, she didn't even realize to the end of Infinite that she is in a way Cortana. She is a copy of Cortana. That is being played heavily in this book, because after that one moment with Spartan Horvath, she's afraid to come and like show herself to other humans. There's a part where they get to like this, encampment of humans surrounding like a Life Shaper Central monument area, and she pretty much says, do you want to like come out, do you want to talk? And she says no, because she knows in this moment these humans are going to be looking to him for hope, for being saved. And if they see her, all they're going to see is Cortana. They're going to get scared, they're going to get angry, they're going to get defensive, and it's not something she can handle. So I really think that Kelly Gay just nailed that perfectly. Like every time Joyous would pop up as like the first person character, I would love it. Seeing her reaction to people looking down on her, like it hurt. She just killed this character so beautifully. Well done. There's a part where Joyous is in the Forerunner system and she's doing her own thing, kind of just monitoring Chief and Lucas, who are talking. Chief's giving him a heart-to-heart because we know Chief is good at those. But there's this part where she starts to lose control. Not of herself, but of the system she's in. And this random voice comes through, like, telling her meddling's at an end, calls her a child. And then for a brief moment, she feels like she's under attack. Like she feels like something's able to get into her system, kind of like what she's able to do to many things. And just as she's pulled out by Chief, she discovers that whatever was in the system with her took the Encephalon, the keys to Zeta Halo. And from that moment on, she has no control over Zeta Halo. Now, I am going to discuss what I think this intelligence was. When we first saw in Infinite that random portal that opened, I thought it was offensive bias. We don't exactly know who it was that opened the portal at the end of the game. There's still no confirmation of who that was. But I'm starting to get a hunch of who I think it might be. I still think maybe offensive bias, but there's more that I want to discuss in a separate video, and you'll see why when I release that video, and I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end of this video. Alright, let's talk about the pilot, aka Fernando Esparza. He's definitely in this book a lot more than he was in Infinite. Obviously, Infinite, he was pretty much just our, transport guy. He took us from place to place. He was captured at the end of the game, and we had to go save him, and then he was again transporting us. Overall, he kind of plays the same role. We get a little more about him, and All right, there's only really one thing to talk about him. Okay, one other thing after this, but this is a major thing that I did not like with Halo Infinite, and I think personally they made it worse in this book. I don't know whose decision this was, whether it was the author or someone at HaloStudios. All I will say is this is one of those things that I hated. I'm not gonna lie, I did not like about the book. So if you recall the Discover Hope trailer, we have it to where we first meet the pilot, this man who is stuck in this Pelican. He's drifting off in space by himself. He's scared. He's alone. He's trying to survive. And then we see his holographic puck, where he's essentially watching, what we've been assumed to be his wife and daughter. Daddy misses you. Can you sing him a song? Tell him you love him. Like, it's this beautiful moment. And for me, it's set up a character that I'm like, they're gonna make this hurt. They're gonna make me want to save this guy. He may die in Infinite. It just set up that moment where I'm like, I have to save him. As Master Chief, I have to save the pilot. But then through the game, you have it to where the pilot pretty much reveals that his family is dead. And I'll show you that clip right here.
Family, Chief? Anyone special out there?
No,
Then why do you do this? Again and again.
it's all I know.
What about you? Do you have anyone out there?
No. Not anymore.
I'm sorry.
It's just been so long since anyone's even asked me something like that.
That part, when I heard that, I was very disappointed because, not saying that I didn't have that same sense of I need to protect him, but it wasn't as urgent in that moment. I was like, oh, okay. So now you're just basically freaking out and panicking because you just want to self-preserve yourself. You want to save yourself. You just want to get back to Earth or wherever you're from. It just took away that, like, I need to get him home because he has a family. And so then with this book, it makes it worse. So at the end of Infinite, when Jaga takes the pilot, when we get to where Jaga's little weird encampment is inside of the House of Reckoning, we find that holographic puck. Chief picks it up. He sees like the message that the pilot has been listening to this whole time. Jaga's even being like, ooh, so sad, like all creepy and stuff. In the book, when the pilot takes Chief to this destroyed frigate that he was hiding in for those 3 days that Chief was missing, Chief goes, oh, here you go. I found this for you. And the pilot goes, cool, thanks. Did you know this isn't even mine? I don't even know who these people are. They just remind me of my wife and daughter. Let me tell you, when I read that, I was done with this character. I think Nicholas Royce, who voices the character, does so well with the character. Like, he killed it. But man, did HaloStudios really just ruin the character for me. Like, not only did you just take away my whole urgency to get him home, but you also took away what I was seeing as, like, his final, like, what was keeping him alive? What was keeping him going? Obviously, yes, he still has the thought of his wife and daughter, who he kind of doesn't really confirm whether they're alive or dead in the book. He kind of makes it almost seem like they may be alive. But overall, we just get the sense that they're dead. And he's been using this puck of a random woman and child to, like, kind of remind him of his own family. And, it really just destroyed the character for me. I personally did not like that aspect of the book. I wanted to like the pilot. I wanted to have the feel of urgency of getting him home, keeping him safe. Only because I know that if they end up killing him, it would destroy me. But now I'm like, if he dies, he dies, There is one other major thing that happens in the book. Of course, he is transporting the Chief and Joyeux and Lucas Browning to a Life Shaper archive area. And after he drops them off, he's kind of like just, hovering around the area, keeping to himself, trying to stay out of sight until the Banish show up. And they're able to shoot down the Pelican. Not destroy it, but disable it enough. When it crashes, a bunch of elites come aboard. He panics. He actually ends up trying to shoot one of them. But then it comes to find out that these elites are the Swords of St. Helios. And at first I was like, oh my god. The Swords of St. Helios heard the signal from Rubicon Protocol. They've come to save everyone. No, they're just Swords of St. Helios elites that were on Infinity. But hey, if we're seeing elite allies in this book, I feel like Halo's trying to say, hey, maybe playable elites in Halo 7? Or maybe I'm just stretching. Probably just stretching. But hey, you never know. Okay. The last major character, Lucas Browning. So if those who don't know, Lucas Browning first shows up in Halo Rubicon Protocol. He's a young medical officer. He gets in one of the Bumblebee life pods that they just called the boat, and everyone in there is called the boat crew. They leave Infinity, they crash down on the planet. Before they can essentially escape the boat, the ring gets shattered, and then they get stuck in there, and then they get saved by a Spartan known as Nina Kovan. Then they go on this long journey to the Immortal Reverie, and the Immortal Reverie gets destroyed by the Banished, and then when they're making their grand escape from them, some of his boat crew doesn't survive, and likewise Nina Kovan, her armor, which has been seriously damaged throughout this book, seizes up. Like, her armor locks up because I can't remember the exact issue with it, but like whatever the modulator that's supposed to like monitor armor lock and all that kind of stuff like malfunctions and causes her armor to seize up every now and then. In this moment, it seizes up. The Banished are coming. Lucas realizing, hey, I gotta protect my people, basically becomes a distraction for the boat crew by running out of this cave where they're hiding. The Banished hunt him down, capture him, take him to the tower where Chaklock is, and we get this whole story of how he's the one that was forced to release the Harbinger. He was the one who was taken by the Harbinger to be like tormented and tortured by her. It's almost a grave mind level threat where like he's listening to her talk and he cannot comprehend it. Like, what she says kind of like mentally destroys him. And there's a lot of like references to the grave mind in that conversation where it's like, are you connecting the Harbinger, aka the Endless, to the Flood, or is this just, you know, fan service? Like, I don't know, and we'll get more into the Endless here soon. But we catch up after the events of that book. Again, you can listen to many of these like terminal pads in Halo Infinite and kind of get that same story if you don't want to read that book. But Chief finds Lucas Browning when we realize Jaeger or Domni has him in custody. He's essentially using Lucas to try and find the Harbinger because Jaeger himself doesn't realize that not only he knows Eshrum's dead, but he doesn't know that the Harbinger is dead. He knows that she has the Despondent Pyre Encephalon, which essentially just gives whoever has it grand control over the ring, not realizing that, one, she's dead, two, Joyeuse has the Encephalon. But after Jaeger kind of has a quick little, I don't want to say fight, but disagreement with the possible new heads or new leadership of the Banished, he leaves the House of Reckoning just before seconds of Chief sending a tiny little nuke that they found on that frigate that the pilot was hiding on. They nuked it. The House of Reckoning is gone now. It was obliterated by a small nuke. And also in that moment, you know, we do get to meet some of the new possible heads of the Banished. We're told by the pilot that there's this meeting going on after the funeral for Escharum, which has been spanning 3 or 4 days. And on the last day, they will decide who is the next leader for the Banished. But after that moment, when the nuke goes off, we're not really told who all survived. And we don't really see the Banished again. We don't see, like, those Banished. We see the Banished who are following Jaeger, which Jaeger in his own way becomes, like, his own little leader of the Banished. Though when we get to Jaeger's character, you'll find out he doesn't want to be the leader of the Banished. He just wants to kill the Chief. Like, the bro just wants revenge. That's it. But he takes Lucas Browning away from the House of Reckoning just, you know, before it was destroyed. And Chief and Joyeuse and the pilot follow him to this other fragment of the ring where we find what's called now Erdamni Keep, which is Jaeger's own base that he had set up somewhere on the ring fragments. Chief sneaks in, he takes the Lucas Browning away from there, and Jaeger lets him, because what we find out is that the Harbinger found a way to, like, basically track Lucas Browning. So he allows the Chief to take Lucas because he can track them, and he expects them to lead Jaga to the Harbinger. So it's a grand story of him just, again, following them around, kind of like he did in Infinite. He's there, but we never see him. We discover with Lucas that the reason why he's pretty much gone insane and why, he's just not well is the Harbinger placed a Gesh on him. Now, if you don't recall what a Gesh is they're essentially this coding within your DNA and your conscious. If you want the actual definition, they're essentially a genetic command imposed on an organism or species. So think of it almost like it can be very direct in telling you what it is. For example, Lord of Admirals, who was constantly talking in Chakos' head in Halo Primordium, or it could be very silent and just kind of be an unconscious level thing that you're doing without realizing it. For example, Halsey building the Mjolnir armor, finding Chief, making Cortana, was all, pre-planned in her Gesh without her realizing it. It was all the culmination of a Gesh designed by the Librarian throughout human species. It wasn't just specifically for Halsey, but everything that culminated into the creation of the Chief and Cortana and his armor were one of the many Geshes left in humans. And if you're wondering where I'm getting that from, it's from this scene in Halo 4.
Reclaimer. When I indexed mankind for repopulation, I hid seeds from the didact. Seeds which would lead to an eventuality. Your physical evolution. Your combat skin. Even your ancilla, Cortana. You are the culmination of 1,000 lifetimes of planning.
Planning for what?
But yes, we discover that in a way the Harbinger has left one on Lucas. And this becomes Chief's mission throughout the entirety of the book. He needs to figure out what this Gesh is and how to remove it from Lucas. This is what leads them to multiple locations away from the fragmented portion of the ring, actually. And one thing I really enjoyed about this book is it talks about the different biomes. Snowy lands, swamplands, rain, inclement weather. These were things that I had wished to see in Infinite, but instead we got the Pacific Northwest vibe, which is good. It was pretty, it was beautiful, but it was the only biome that we got in Infinite. And I love seeing the different ones, and I hope for Halo 7 that we get to see more of that. Now, real quick, if you're wondering, I know I saw this on Twitter the other day. Someone was worried that Edge of Dawn would make them leave Zeta Halo, and therefore the next Halo game would take place somewhere else. I can safely say, the end of the book, they're still on Zeta Halo. They're still lost, so there's no getting off the ring just, willy-nilly. So the next game will, for the most part, still take place on this ring. This is what leads them to the Life Worker Central, where Joyeuse meets, or where we see this huge encampment of humans. Joyeuse doesn't want to come out because she's afraid they're going to hate her. It what leads them to the Life Worker Archive, because they need to find some sort of Life Worker medical center that will allow them to analyze and take the Gesh out of Lucas. So when they're in this archive center, they come across a lot of cool things. They find a lot of suspended living creatures like humans or Sangheli, even the, oh god, I can never pronounce this, Gigantopithecus, which is what Mira from Halo Primordium was, if you recall that. It's just kind of a weird little repository type area where they keep living creatures for research and for the DNA for when the rings are activated and they need to send out all the life. But while they're in there, Lucas starts acting a little weird. Lucas is very weird throughout this entire book. Sometimes he's talking, but it's not him talking. He discusses how when he was around the Harbinger, there was a lot of times that just being in her vicinity felt like there was a weird time distortion. And that makes me wonder if that's why Chief was actually gone for 3 days. Maybe for some reason being around the Harbinger truly has some sort of weird time dilation effect, or if it's from when he got transported out of the Silent Oratorium at the end of the game. Either way, Lucas says that sometimes he would go in there, it'd only feel maybe an hour to a half hour. In reality, it might have been longer, maybe even days, but it never felt that way. So there's obviously some weird time issues when it comes to the Endless. But anyways, at one point, Lucas kind of loses control of his body and he just starts running. And the Chief obviously chases after him. This adventure leads them to a Huragok. And this Huragok, at first known as Rises Higher, y'all know me, I love our Huragok. We've been seeing them a lot in the books, specifically Contact Harvest and Halo Broken Circle. They're in Halo 3 ODST. I love these little guys. They're adorable. They're down to earth. Kelly Gay, I think, hates them. And the reason I say this is this particular Huragok knows Geshes. It knows Lifeworker technology. So when it asks to interface with Lucas to see what the Gesh is, something about this Huragok changes. And you can see that change, but I just did not realize it. One, his colors go from the normal purplish blue that they normally have to like orangish. And at first I was like, oh, that's strange. Maybe it's just the way the Gesh works. Well, we're told that the Gesh is an access code, and that access code is for an unknown location. Now, whether Rises Higher knows what the location is and just doesn't say, or it truly doesn't have that information, we'll never know. I think it knows, and here's why. When they ask if there's a way to remove it, the Huragok essentially says, no, but I think I have a way to rewrite it. Follow me. So they follow it as the Banished are coming to attack. As they leave this place, he leads them to a teleporter pad. They take that pad and they end back up at the Silent Auditorium, the location of the end of the last game, or of Infinite. This is kind of when the Huragok starts acting strange, like it's not really communicating with them, but it's still leading them towards, you know, the main room, the courtroom of the Silent Auditorium where we fought the Harbinger. Now, if you're expecting the Harbinger just to be gone and like, ooh, what happened? Maybe she's still alive. No, her body's still there. She's still very much dead. But the Huragok leads them to one of the many pillars. There's 3 like statues in the room that are supposed to represent a Forerunner. We don't know who. We thought we knew, but I'll tell you who in just a moment. He leads them to one of these pillars and it starts interfacing with it. And then the Master Chief is like zapped with like a hard light technology, not allowing him to move. And then he's transported away. And then they're, you know, it's like kind of blinking. One moment Chief's in the room, the destroyed Silent Auditorium. And then next thing you know, he's back in that same room, but it's put together. It looks fine. It looks pristine. But now in this room is Despondent Pyre and Offensive Bias.
Are the vessels prepared?
The Silex is already, as is the auditorium. Grand Edict, this is most unprecedented.
The Endless must be contained. I will inform the Criterion to proceed.
They believe we are here to help.
It matters not. Today we do what it takes to maintain order, to preserve our truth. Time will forget they ever existed.
Time is not a construct we can control.
And we cannot allow it to be theirs. If Halo cannot end them, it must imprison them. When it is done, the engineers will be busy. We will learn their secrets.
I fear I cannot do this alone.
You shall not be alone. The Criterion has given the order. Offensive bias has been deployed.
What we discover is Chief has been transported back in time. Not really physically, but it's more like he's kind of, if you've ever seen, this is the best way I can explain it. If you've ever seen the Goblet of Fire of Harry Potter and Harry uses the pensive to like dip his head in the water, he's kind of transported into the memory. He's not physically there, but he can like walk around and follow the main characters of this memory. And when he's transported to this memory, we get a cool timestamp date that says 97,368 BCE. And if you don't recall what that means, That's the same date that if you've seen the legendary Infinite or ending of Infinite, that is the date where we get the conversation between the Granidic and Despondent Pyre. And this is cool because now we get to see what happens in the moment where the Endless are captured and contained by the Forerunners. Okay, I had the book in my hand because I totally forgot the names of everyone who's going to be in here, but here's essentially what you need to know. A tribunal of 5 have gathered, and this is obviously the 3 Forerunners and Offensive Bias and Despondent Pyre. We then get to see, I believe it's 3 of the Endless come into the Silent Auditorium. Before they do, though, we're told that we have, obviously, the Grand Edict, who is the voice that we hear at the end of Infinite during the Legendary ending, the Inspector Materius, and the Chief Judicate, who are people I don't believe we've ever heard or seen in the Forerunner saga. They are not anyone I recall, but they are known as the Criterion. That's pretty much what the Grand Edict said the Criterion has already given the order. They're essentially kind of like this secret level of government that has basically bent Forerunner society for eons. But yes, it is kind of like a silent government that has been working in the shadows. Think of them like the Oni, but of the Forerunners. So when the Endless come in, again, the Endless are under the, understanding that they're kind of here to like parlay with the Forerunners. This takes place, thousands of years after the rings have been fired. Again, it's not immediately that the Forerunners leave the galaxy when the rings are fired. They stay for a little while to make sure, the reseeding of life goes well. But during this time, they came across the Endless, discovered that the ring doesn't destroy them. The Flood has all but been starved to death, so the Flood is gone, but the Endless remain, and that is an issue for them. So when they're discussing things like the Endless, I can't say their name. I'm going to have it right here. But we get a little bit more about their physiology. They have kind of like a cephalopod type design. The way that they're described is very weird. The Harbinger is one of them, but with the Silex design of the Endless and what's described here in the book, I feel like the Harbinger is maybe just one form of them, and that the other forms, I don't want to say specifically because I don't want to get hopes up, but the way they're described and they almost sound like a form of a precursor with like the weird tentacle face and weird bodies. Like they sound very precursory, but we don't exactly get their origins or like they're revealed of their origins. What we do get is the Granidic essentially telling himself like they probably did not originate in the galaxy, which again is weird because the only other species we know that has not originated in the galaxy are the precursors. So once again, they're really leaning into the Endless being related to the precursors in some shape or form. Here's what's interesting though. The Endless pretty much tell the Foreigners like they don't want to control the galaxy. They don't care about that. They're merely just wanderers. They love to explore and just wander. They've transcended ever having to be like need to be in control of everything. And that's very curious because it makes them sound more, not intelligent, but more advanced than the Foreigners even do. Which, even though, like, when they say that they have no wish to extend their will on others, the Foreigners already perceive them as a threat. And they're kind of like, yo, you kind of, you muck up our plans for humanity to be the Reclaimers and the holders of the mantle. So you're under arrest, and you're going to be locked here. And the Endless kind of go, wow, surprising. And obviously they're taken away. They're, again, put in these weird stasis fields, kind of like what the Chief was, and taken out of the room. Now, what's curious here is, right after this, a piece of dialogue plays out between the 3 Foreigners. And this dialogue is important because originally a lot of us thought, and here's where I'm going to break everyone's heart for everyone who thought it, whoever posted the video. If you remember in the room, I can't remember the exact name, but in the room where Despondent Pyre is pretty much been like, not destroyed, but like she's frozen and can no longer move, and you can hear the Foreigners talking, like echoing in the room. A lot of us were like, oh, that's the Grand Edict, Despondent Pyre, and Born Stellar, the Isodidact, when they're talking about Has there been a consensus? There has. All this kind of stuff, like this conversation that I'll show right here.
Consensus.
There is.
If they cannot be purged, they must be contained. Balance restored. Balance restored.
A lot of us believe that to be the Grand Edict, Despondent Pyre, and Born Stellar. Unfortunately, it's not. It is the Grand Edict, but it's not Despondent Pyre, and it's not the Isodidact. It's in fact these other two foreigners that are already here at this tribunal. That conversation that you hear in that room is them basically saying, we are in agreement of locking the Endless up forever and letting time forget them. And the Grand Edict pretty much says, like, he doesn't like that they have to do this, but in order for the galaxy to be as is needed to be, he has to do what he has to do. And that's really just, again, that's very Oni level for the foreigners. So then, while this is happening, Lucas is still in the present day Silent Auditorium. It's destroyed, but he's completely alone. And guess who shows up? Jaga Domni. And we find out that the reason Jaga was able to find them so quickly at the Silent Auditorium is because when they went through that portal that rises higher, the engineer led them through, he left the portal on. And he left the coordinates for where they were going. Only to find out that whatever happened when Rises Higher essentially made contact with Lucas, we can assume a Gesh or a form of the Harbinger possessed that Huragok. And it's been helping Jaga. Because at that point, Jaga shows up, he sees the body of the Harbinger, says, okay, cool, I can take her body and this engineer because they can help me get the Encephalon, the keys to Zeta Halo. So then he looks at Lucas and says, hey, looks like your usefulness is coming to an end. And he stabs Lucas with an energy sword. And then Lucas looks to the engineer, because the engineer's been able to heal like slight wounds to him this whole time, and he like begs the engineer to save him. Engineer just turns around and leaves with Jaga, taking the Harbinger's body and her helmet when it fell off. And it's like this crushing moment, because typically these engineers are so sweet, and it's not necessarily Rises Higher's fault. It's not like he just said, I'm going to be evil. No, he was possessed by the Harbinger in some shape or form. But it's such a crushing moment. Fortunately enough, Chief returns from the memory. He's able to escape after Lucas kind of like, dyingly crawls to this terminal and like uses, plot armor to release the Chief, even though he has no idea how to use Forerunner technology. He somehow remembered all the key codes that the engineer was putting in the terminal. Chief is released, realizes like, oh wow, that's what happened to the Endless, and then he sees Lucas dying, and Lucas pretty much says like, I don't want to die in this room. Chief knows what he has to do. The Chief pretty much grabs Lucas' body and he fights the Banished once again, escaping the Silent Auditorium, and he makes it to outside. He's able to fight off the Banished, and he gets support from the Swords of San Helios when they show up at the last moment with the pilot, help take out the rest of the Banished. He gets Lucas Browning outside to look at like the mountains, the ring vista, the sunset, all this kind of stuff. And it's in this moment that like Lucas dies in the Chief's arms, and it's again a realization that Chief, he failed. His whole mission that he set for himself at the beginning of this book, when he found Lucas, he failed it, and he doesn't take it well. We then fast forward 3 days later. Chief, they held a funeral for Lucas and other humans that they were able to like recover. Chief's been very quiet. When he makes his way back to Life Shaper Central, this monolith where like that encampment of humans are, he's been very quiet. he fortunately came across another Spartan, which was Nina Kovan, and some of the remaining survivors from the boat crew from Rubicon Protocol. And obviously, we kind of graze over their reaction to Lucas being dead. I didn't like that part because he was such an integral part to their team that just having a quick, oh, they were sad, moving on, was kind of like, that could have used a little more. Like, I would have loved a lot more exposition for that. But Kovan and Chief do like quick raids, ambushes on banished patrols near the area. But Jacob pretty much went back to his keep, and he's pissed because he finds out that the Hurugok, even though it is in a way the Harbinger, they still don't have the Encephalon. Like, they don't have the keys to the ring. And it's revealed to him that Joyeuse took the Encephalon from the Harbinger way back near the end of Halo Infinite. But he keeps Rises Higher alive for now because he realizes that it's more of a, of a benefit than a disadvantage for him in the moment. But that pretty much ends Jaga's story in the book. Now, here's some two really cool things. At the end of the book, there's a signal coming through. And they obviously, at this encampment, Chief is told, like, you need to come with us right now. There's some crazy stuff happening. Again, Chief's been very, like, quiet and distant ever since Lucas passing. But when he walks in, they're able to find, like, signals of human survivors all across the ring. And Chief says, did you find the Infinity? And they're like, no, but, like, we have major encampments of humans. Like, this is our chance to start regrouping and fighting back. Chief's like, all right, let's do this. And it kind of gets him like that spark again, like, let's keep fighting. We can still take back this ring and beat the Banished. The epilogue of this book. Now, this is very important, and I think that a lot of people are going to freak out when they hear this, or read this if you've read this first. We find out from in Rubicon Protocol, they were able to get the ring's location. And in that book, they fought to one of the beacons, and they shot that beacon into space, hoping someone picks up the code that's UNSC related. Well, someone did pick up that code, but they're not human. They're on the planet of Helios. And all I say right now is we're following a character who's been pretty important to Halo's story since Halo 2. And when Olympia Vale walks into his keep, his little office area, if you will, he tells her, like, yo, I found this code, this data, this coordinates to Zeta Halo. We should probably get there and help. And Olympia Vale's like, yes, we should, Arbiter. Yes, the person who was able to find the code, the coordinates to Zeta Halo's location is the Arbiter. That sets up a tremendous story for Halo 7. Whatever this ends up being, I just hope and I just pray that they have to capitalize off of this. You do not set up an ending like that if you're not going to actually do anything with it. You've essentially said that we're going to see the Arbiter in Halo 7. And so, obviously we don't know when the next game's coming out for a while, but they've set up a very interesting story. And it doesn't just end there. But that is the book. This has been a long video, but I wanted it to be. There was a lot to discuss, and there's a lot of major things that are set up for Halo 7. Now I'm going to quickly talk about one other thing that I'm a little nervous about. That part when Chief shows Spartan Corvath, Joyeuse, they're talking, and Horvath's like, yo, I'm gonna draw the banish off of you while you guys make your escape. Also, we get Horvath for like 3 pages, and then he leaves. So that's cool. Chief gives Horvath his grapple gun, whatever. He gives him the grapple. And Chief does not have the grapple for the rest of the book. Now, on one end, this could be very just minor, just something that Chief had to do in the moment. He'll get a new one, especially now that they're going to reconnect with humanity. But part of me feels like the focus on that kind of may lean towards Halo 7 getting rid of the grapple. And if that's the case, I really hope not. Like, don't get me wrong, this was a great book, but the grapple shot for me was such a cool tool in Halo Infinite that I will actually be pretty sad if it's gone. I'll probably get over it, like I got over a lot of things that leave each Halo game. But that's one of those things that I think they should keep. I think that it created such a cool gameplay mechanic for Halo. And it could also mean that maybe the open worldness of the next Halo game is gone, because, you know, the grapple shot really helped with that, being able to, you know, travel across the ring. But if you don't need it as much, if it's more linear than open world, then you don't need the grapple shot. And maybe they'll keep it for multiplayer, since it sounds like multiplayer is its own thing. I don't know. What I do know is this book sets up a lot for Halo 7. Whether 343/HaloStudios capitalizes off of this will remain to be seen, but Kelly Gay herself did so well with this book. She did well with the characters. I feel like Jaga was the one character that wasn't given enough focus on, especially being on the cover of the book. He obviously had that major point where he kills Lucas Browning. He's trying to find the keys to the ring, but obviously that was gone the entire time. And likewise, it felt like the only thing that they may have revealed, but a lot of people were commenting this before the book even released, even before even I found an early copy. I didn't know this, but he's one of the Silent Shadows in Headhunters. I don't remember where that was announced. I know he was a Silent Shadow. I didn't know he was the Silent Shadow in Headhunters, which is in this short story in Halo Evolution. But it sets up why he hates Spartans so much. When Roland and his other fellow Headhunter, whose name I'm blanking out on, detonate the bomb and pretty much kill all the elites and severely injure Jaga, who is picked up by the Banish after that, we just get to see like, oh, he got cybernetics, he hates Spartans, that's Jaga. And it just felt like it was a weird setup for like more of an origin story to him than it was a continuation of his story. He's probably going to be a major threat in Halo 7, hopefully, but I feel like, again, he just didn't need to have that focus of being on the cover like he was. But that is Halo Edge of Dawn. It is a very amazing book. I think there's so much that is set up for Halo 7 in this book, and I think that I'm just very curious to see what the team at HaloStudios does with this story. I am going to create a whole separate video called The Lament of the Harbinger, and the reason why is there's a lot I want to discuss that if I try and shove in this video, it's not going to get the exploration that it deserves, and there's a reason for that. It's very unique. I'm going to upload it hopefully at the exact same time that I release these 3 videos. There's going to be a lot of videos on this day of the release of the book. But that is pretty much it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in Halo Silent Storm.